Race 5 of Season 2 of ZRL, and we're on the Keith Hill After Party route for a points race. So we're in London, the home of Virginia Woolf, Isaac Newton, David Beckham and Florence Nightingale, Queens Victoria, Elizabeth I and II, and the place where Churchill gave his finest orations. And as I'm sure he would have said, we will race them in Watopia. We will race them in Mercury Isles, and in New York, and back in Watopia for a TTT. We will never surrender! This is the Inside Line. An after-party route, if you don't know, is a route that's pretty flat until it's not, and then it's very hilly, which this one certainly lives up to the billing. It's 36.8 kilometres long with, I think, 436 metres of elevation, though the ride that I'll be showing you was done at a time where the elevation was done wrong, so ignore that to an extent. There are but two segments in this race and they couldn't be much more different. There's the mole sprint reverse, which comes after 14.9 kilometres and is a very short sprint, very slightly upish, and it's only 200 metres long. And then there's Keith Hill itself, which starts at 32.5 kilometres. It's got an average gradient of 5%, though that includes some dips, so it's generally sort of more consistent at around 7%, and it's 4.3 kilometres long, ends with a bit of flat as well. Although the type of segments haven't been released yet, so they could potentially be FAL and FTS, I'd be very surprised if it wasn't both for both segments. So FAL, first across the line, and those points go from 20 for the first across the banner to 1 point for the 20th, and FTS, that's fastest through the segment, goes from 10 points down to 2 for the first 5 places. And then there's also finishing points, so whoever crosses the line first, which is also the end of the segment, the Keith Hill segment that is, get points based on how many people are in the race. So if there's 59 people in your race and you come first, you get 59 points. And there's also bonus points if you achieve a first 5 position, so 10 down to 2 again. I'm going to release another video which confirms the segments and also the power-ups which haven't been revealed at this point in time. I don't keep going on about this Level Velo clothing that I'm sponsored by, but it really is absolutely awesome. It feels so smooth and comfortable. I just feel like a pro while I'm wearing it. I don't cycle like a pro, but I do feel like a pro. So get yourself down to Level Velo. My bike recommendation is definitely the Tron if you have it, preferably the pink Tron, that is the fastest. But if you don't have that, then go for an all-rounder, something like the Scott Addict RC with the disc wheels, I would suggest. I've made some beautifully detailed Recon notes for you, which are available to download from my Google Drive, the link to which is in the description below. Let's have a little bit of a more deep dive into the course. So this is just the flat bit. If we include the climb, then it just goes off the scale and you can't see any detail. So the first major obstacle is Northumberland Avenue, and that comes at about, I think it's 3.2k. It's in the note, and it's about 400 meters at about 4%. Quite a tough one. The more experienced Zwifters will approach this from the rear. Any small hills, if you can get at the rear at the start, then you give yourself a little break because there's so much draft at the bottom of the hill. The speeds are so fast that you get draft for 5 seconds, say, depending on the speed of the group. For an A group, you're going to get draft almost all the way up of a significant value. But if you stay towards the back as you're coming into that climb, then you can start your effort a bit later, and that means if you start 5 seconds later, then you can carry on 5 seconds more, and you'll need those 5 seconds at the top. The mile sprint reverse comes at 14.9, and it's part of the mile itself is pretty much all 1%. It actually increases to 2% as it takes you up to Trafalgar Square and Nelson's Column. So that will be the most natural place for a breakaway to go. People after the sprint, whilst people are milling around, getting back together, that's probably the biggest opportunity for the sprint. There is the Piccadilly Rise, which comes at 24 kilometres in, and that's 800 metres, averages about 2%, but it's a sort of step climb, so there are pitches that you can take advantage of, though it's so close to the climb, it's only 7-8 kilometres to go, that it's probably not worth trying to get a decent gap there. Keith Hill KOM comes in various different segments really. Before it even starts, there's a decent sized ramp of about 400 metres, averaging about 5%, and it's worth burning a match there to try and stay with the group because it flattens out, goes to about 1 to 3% before the KOM starts proper. Then there's a good hard ramp of 8%, and then there's a short descent of about 200 metres, about 6-7% down, and then a bit of a flat at the bottom for another couple of hundred metres. So again, if you can get with a group there, or at least behind one rider, get yourself a bit of draft, you will get some benefit. And then there's the long, hard climb. Try and keep your effort steady. There's about 2.5 kilometres of climbing. It does pitch up to up to 10% in parts, and you want to try and keep around your effort level that you can for that climb. So for the A's, it might be a 10-minute segment. For the D's, it might be 20-25 minutes. So match your power to what you can do for that. Try to keep it steady. There's not much draft to be had. There is a little segment in the middle where it flattens out a bit, and you'll be glad for it, but it's not worth managing your effort for that. And then it flattens out at the top, so give everything you can before you get to that final little segment, and then give it a bit more to get to the end as well on the flat. But put down all your effort that you can on the hill, and then just do what you can on the flat bit to get yourself over the line. Keith Hill After Party is a custom route that hasn't been raced very much, so I've got the ride of Eric Lee from Don't Get Dropped Cycling, quite appropriate because most everyone will get dropped on this monster climb at the end, and he was doing it as part of the Premier League South Africa Get Summer Ready series. Not very appropriately named for this time of year for most of us, but here we go. Off we go. It's quite a bumpy start here, so it's best to be on your toes, or you might even want to try and catch other people out. Collect your first power up at 600 metres to go, and then there's a bit of a rise leading up into this sweet descent. The A-cuts might even get a bit of super tuck down there. And then there's a nice bit of flat leading you up to Northumberland Avenue, which comes at about 3.6k. It's a 400 metre stretch. I've slowed it down quite a lot here, so you can see the effort that Eric's putting in is a bit further forward than I would like to be. If you can get to the back there, lessen your effort, as I mentioned earlier. Now, I think some people will try and make a go for it here. There is a fair while to go before the sprint, but if you can get a few people off the front, then you can at least put people in a bind and make them chase. But as we come up to Trafalgar Square for the first time, there is a short descent afterwards where people will tend to catch. And then there's kilometres and kilometres of flat, but this really nice descent between 5.4 and 6 kilometres. But after that, there's small little bumps. Try and take some rest when the gradient goes down. Push a little harder and catch when the gradient goes up. Get yourself as much rest as you can, but be mindful of watching brakes off the front. It will be very hard to get away here, but the pace will likely be slow because there's not much point in pushing the front. So that might be an opportunity to go. And as we come down Birdcage Walk, things will start to get a bit angsty, and onto Constitution Hill. and here's where people will start making longer efforts. There's a U-turn here where you could lose the draft of people, so it's not a bad place to make a go for it, but the chances are everyone's going to be watching for breaks here. And as we round this final corner before the sprint, it's a solid 1% up all the way to the banner, and the marker is here. If we've got FTS, that might be relevant, but yeah, it's very short sprint, so I'll do another video detailing how to manage the sprints once we know what the points are and what the power-ups will be. Might be a good one for a ghost power-up, going long with a ghost power-up or something like that, but the chances are, I would imagine, they'll have something like an arrow that you'll get at the first power-up banner, and then we'll see for the others. And yeah, so you'll obviously pick up a power-up banner at the end of that sprint, and then it's a fair old degree of flatness until we hit the, I call it the Piccadilly rise. It's up Piccadilly at 24 kilometers. There's ups and downs. People might try and go long, but everyone knows the story, and going long is really going to tire you out for the climb. Another little descent there leading into this Piccadilly rise. It's a kind of stepped rise. There's segments that are sort of 1%, and then as it comes up towards this corner, you hit about 3%. Decent little drop there from Piccadilly, and then there's not much to write home about until the Comm. Flat along the side of the Thames again. Little bump at this tunnel. Not insignificant little bump there at about 28.7, and then you pick up another power up, and then we head towards Tower Bridge. Went up the mechanism there, very interesting, and then down to the escalator. Whee! All flat here, no point in trying to make an effort there. You'll want to save all your energy for this little ramp where you desperately want to use a match to get some draft, so that when you come to this flat bit you get some draft. And then the KOM proper starts at 32.5. We just pass it by. No point in trying anything fancy to get FTS, even if it is on. Just the fastest up the hill is going to get the points either way. And Eric always looks particularly frantic there, but yeah, we've got this little descent there, nice little drop after the second ramp, and then this is the main portion of the climb, 2.4 kilometers long, averaging about 5.5%. Steps up to 11 occasionally, but generally fairly consistent in the 7 to 8 range. Just had a little bit of 12, a little bit of 10 there, really tough bit, back down to 6. Try and modulate your effort a bit, so you use a bit more on the sharper bits, but little flat bit there, that's the last little bit of rest you'll get before you hit the final flat. Get yourself into a little battle with whoever you're with. If it's for the front, then all the better, but even if it's for last place, all the points count. And he lets a little bit of gap go there, which is the worst time to lose it really, because it's a lot harder to make it up on this flatter section. But Eric gives it his all as ever. This is gaining, is he going to do it? Use your power up if you've still got one. Oh, he's nearly on him. He's got his draft. Is he going to do it in the sprint? Oh, not quite. But as ever, he gives it 100%. As should you. I hope you enjoy this magnificent but very tricky course, and the very best of luck to you in the Zwift Racing League Stage 5 of Season 2.
Oh. I don't know why I did that. I'm gonna go die now. Alright guys, please like, subscribe, hit the bell button below, call an ambulance for me, call a doctor, call 911, leave a couple of comments.